Since the new maps came out, I've been playing as much Brinewater and Flounder as I can to learn how they play, and something's been surprising me about Brinewater. This flank route here, left sneaky, is working in more situations than I expected. This team we're playing against is Cherry Limeade, a Division 1 team in Ludi. They're not at the absolute tip-top level, but they can definitely win tournaments if the heaviest hitters in the West aren't there, and even though this is just Anarchy Open, a very meaningless game mode for a competitive team, in the general case, they are certainly stronger than what is essentially a Division 4 pickup playing quad splattershot because it was Silly Comp Sunday, and everyone needed to be Gem because that's what my supporters voted for. A lot of people see big names on the other team and have some emotional reaction to it, maybe feeling starstruck and being the 13th person that hour to message them after the game, "Saw you in my game today, GG's," or get really competitive and want to beat them so they can say they've beaten Cherry Limeade, and Cherry Limeade's not really that good. See my video on that use of the word good. But from years of experience in competitive Melee that's carried over into Splatoon, I'm a little more used to it, and I'm just in there trying to learn from them. If something usually works for you but doesn't work when you try it against a much stronger team, you've just learned that something about that strategy is going to fall off as you get better. If something you do still works even against a top player, that means you should definitely keep doing it. As I was swimming through Sneaky, I was already thinking, man, I'm probably painting too much here. I bet someone notices this and is pre-firing me as I come around the corner. And then I got to the corner without being pre-fired. And now I was thinking, someone's watching this corner and they're going to paint defensively to stop me before I can get in range. But I caught the Tri-Slosher with their back turned to me and got a splat on them before they could return fire. The flank worked. Kind of. The Tri-Slosher actually got one, and then I immediately get traded back by the Nautilus, so the result of the play is actually a 2-for-1 loss for us. Like I said, Div 1 versus Div 4. But I believe that the idea of this play worked, and that with better mechanics on the part of my teammate and I, we keep ourselves safer and turn this into a fight win. I remember scratching my head about the play, like, why hadn't anyone checked that flank route? Aside from someone pushing in right in front of you on an open sightline, it's basically the only thing anyone has to worry about from that position. It seems like something you'd either be looking at or that you'd have painted ahead of time to give you more time to see it coming. But then it hit me that they probably just don't want to be looking that way. Let me explain. I analyze maps by talking about a concept I call the objective line. If you take the average positions of each member of a Splatoon team as they move from being spawn locked on their side of the map to regaining map control to scoring on the enemy team to spawn locking them to facilitate their own scoring, it probably forms a line that looks pretty similar to this. It's the direction you have to travel in to advance from defense to neutral to offense, and then the direction you retreat when going from offense to neutral and neutral to defense. On some maps like Eeltail Alley, that objective line is pretty much just a straight line in just about every mode. A player standing in the middle of the map with a decently long-ranged weapon can cover a push to either side because the map is so skinny. In fact, this is why Crab Tank is so powerful on the bridge up here, because it's so effective at doing exactly that. But I digress. Other maps have more complex lines, because the stage isn't just a skinny rectangle. My favorite Splatoon 2 map was Piranha Pit Tower Control, because the path the objective has to travel is almost a figure eight. It's possible that after defending a push and starting to make your own, your team has to shift from controlling the left side to controlling the right side to controlling the left again to controlling the right again. It makes for a lot more tactical depth considering how to rotate everyone around. Much more dynamic than our entire goal as a team is to get a Crab Tank on this one spot and then have no route that's safe to push from until it's over. Brinewater isn't the strongest competitive map, but its objective line does have a bend in it. And I think the reason this flank is working so well for me is that it's at the perfect place to exploit that bend in the objective line. Remember how I said the enemy team doesn't want to be looking at it? That's because the Rainmaker is right here, and the direction they want to push the Rainmaker is right here. If they want to be pushing forward and controlling the parts of the map that they need to be able to score, they want to be looking more than 90 degrees away from this flank right here. If they turn far enough around to look at this flank route, they're turning their backs to the entire rest of the enemy team. Ideally, you'd want that angle to be even more extreme, because the flanker has right side peek advantage. So in order to be able to get a full-sized target, instead of just shooting at them as soon as you have any available window, you probably want to actually be rotating even further around the corner so that they're not behind cover anymore. What's also really powerful about this flank route is how quickly you can get into it. On a more linear map like Eeltail, unless you're massively mechanically better than your opponents, you're going to make it to mid around the same time. And it's only once you've been there for a few seconds that you really need to start worrying about flanks at all. But the distance between spawn and this point on the map is about the same as the distance between the enemy spawn and this point on the map. This route is a shortcut to the enemy side of the map, cutting a corner of the objective line so it can deceive you into thinking no one has had time to be pushed far forward enough to challenge you from that position yet. So is this a situation that's going to arise so often that people are going to start checking it? Was this just a momentary lapse and Cherry Limeade will typically check this, especially in tournament circumstances? Maybe. Maybe they were just goofing around. Maybe this is a terrible example. But I think that the theory of this situation was enough to really get us thinking, and I think it illustrated a really interesting way that you can analyze the game to try and find little sneaky routes like this to give you the jump on your opponents.